Well, it's your ability to um, market and make money off your own uh, ingenuity, your own name recognition. If if an author, if Ernest Hemingway writes a book,
Hmm.
he gets the royalties from the book. If you become famous in a field and somebody wants you to endorse a product, you're getting that endorsement because of your name, image, uh, the monetary value you've individually created in that, and
Hmm.
then you market it.
Uh, a common misconception people have is pay to play. How does
Yeah,
name, image, and likeness differ from pay to play?
they are absolutely different. Name, image, likeness says, hey, I got famous. Let's stay in the athletics context. I got famous because I was a great quarterback. And now I'm going to go out there and get endorsements of products because of that equity that I've created. Pay for play is you're going to be playing on the football team this year. I'm going to pay you to play. Pay for play brings in the labor laws. Pay for play brings in agents, the ability to strike, unions, trades, all the things you see the NFL, the NBA, the Major League Baseball Players Association, Major League Baseball being able to do.
Hmm.
So both of them bring the commonality, obviously, is both of them bring money to the athlete. But one says, I'm paying you because I've employed you to do a job. The other says, I'm going to pay you because you've created worth and value and you can help me sell my product or market
Hmm.
my car or whatever.
Have you gotten the chance to read Senator Hunt's proposed bill at all?
I did. I've read some of the other bills also, and of course, most of them are misnomed. They say Pay for Play Act, and that's not what they mean, and that's not what they say. And hers, tracks in large degree what the first statute was, the first bill was out in California, but they now, I think, 35 or 40 of them, and they do not agree in all their particulars.
I thought it was fascinating just looking at it. The fact they had a clause in it that basically says that if you do a endorsement with a clothing company that's not affiliated with the university, it's going to be an issue. So with Nebraska being an Adidas sponsor, it's going to
Right.
that might be
Right.
something.
Well, that's a problem. You can see that in the pros when players say, hey, I've got a contract, I've got a shoe contract. I should be able to appear in a post-game interview with my shoes because I'm making money off that.
Hmm.
When the league has a contract with some other shoe company and they've given them an exclusive right and that company pays more money to get the exclusivity. So you can't have an exclusive contract over here that people pay money for and then it turns out not to be exclusive.
Uh, it depends on different economic scholars, but some will argue that these name, image, and likeness could hurt female athletes because market value will be less for a female athlete compared to a male. But then some will say, here in Nebraska, for instance, with the volleyball team, you have a girl like Lexi Sun, who they could maybe make more than some of the male counterparts can.
Yeah, it's going to depend on how popular the sport is. Not simply the athlete, it's how popular the sport is. You can be the world class, tennis player in college, and you're not going to get anything like the media attention that a quarterback at a Division I football bowl
Mm-hmm.
school will get. So it depends on that. But sure, there'll be occasionally uh, female athletes that will have that sort of name value, either locally or nationally. And there'll be lots of male athletes who will have no name value whatsoever,
Mm-hmm.
notwithstanding the fact that they're male. So yeah, it's going to depend on the market. But the market, if you look at the market, uh, across whether we're talking about male or female fans, whether we're talking about subscribing to sports magazines, attending games, you name the metric you use.
Mm-hmm.
There are many more males who are interested than females, and that drives the market.
Um, Senator Hunt, what she's proposing, and I guess the big way people will profit off name, image, and likeness is they can now run summer camps. They can now have their own YouTube page, and they can now get sponsorship endorsements.
Right. Some of that right now athletes can do if you, before you came to college, had a particular business enterprise, you're entitled to continue it. You can give lessons so long as they're market value. The problem is not, and I think The bills are well intended, and they are pointing at a larger problem, which is all the money that's in college sports and where it's going. But that's a different economic problem. Uh, they're also, although well intended, I think not well informed. Because yes, those things may be available, but what also will come with it clearly is the booster at a major Division I school who thinks, gee, their school can win a national championship, and let's stick with football, if they just get a great quarterback coming in, or they just get a great defensive back or running back, and they've got money, and they'll pay anything to get those athletes to the school. And so you're the car dealer, and you say, hey, I'm going to pay you $500,000 to come in and do some ads for my cars this year. That has nothing to do with the name value of that athlete. It has nothing to do with an economic judgment that that car dealer is making. It has all to do with, I'm a fan, I want my team to win. And this is the way I'm going to do it.
That literally touches on my next question, the bad actor line people talk about all the time. In your scholarly standpoint and in a compliance standpoint, how can they make sure that it's not a shell company where it's a donor telling Adrian Martinez, is hypothetical, you're worth $1 million to sign with Nebraska, and here's your name, image, and likeness value. Like, but everybody knows that's not really his monetary value. How can you show the difference between the
It's
two?
hard to do, and it's hard to do in the NCAA context because the compliance people at the NCAA, the enforcement people at the NCAA, the compliance people on campus, you don't have enough to do it. Many of them are not trained to be that sort of investigator. They don't have subpoena power or other things that law enforcement can use to get at. I mean, the basketball scandal is a perfect example. It isn't as though people on campus didn't think there were things going on behind the scenes with regard to the shoe companies. Mm-hmm. It's that they were unable to get at the information. You couldn't subpoena and make somebody talk to you. The federal prosecutors are able to do it. So that's the problem. The NCAA has a committee that's looking at this, and they're talking about, you know, you're going to have to make sure it's market value. Somebody's going to have to do it. My own view is you need to cut bait one way or the other. Either say we're in the right place because of all the negative consequences that would come from trying to do something else, or say we're going to open it up and we recognize there are going to be negative consequences the other way, but that's the world we're going to be in. And not try to manage in the middle. I think it's just not, you know, my own view. Mm-hmm. It's not the view of anybody I know in the NCAA that you can manage in the middle. And you know, some of it's overblown. I think, let's not name any schools or conferences, but I think boosters who have the most money, who are intent only on a winning team and not anything else about college education or what's good for the player, nothing, just winning teams, and are willing to do that, are still not going to pay 110 players or 85 players on a football team. They're still going to go after, you know, the number one quarterback. I don't know that they'd even be willing to pay the backup quarterback. You know, so I'm not sure that the parade of horribles is going to be, you know, as bad as everybody thinks or anywhere near it. On the other hand, and this is why I think some of the noise is misinformed, I don't think the value of most players playing in college sports is worth anything. Most players, even the elite player, I mean, most of them don't get to the pros. Yeah. If you measure what somebody in minor league baseball gets to play, and probably AAA or maybe even AA minor league baseball is more talented than the talent level on a college campus, they get paid nothing. The development league in the NBA, what did they go up to 180,000 of these athletes? I mean, that's peanuts. For everyone other than the really, really elite player or the one who's captured media attention, it's the name on the back of the uniform that's carrying the freight on the value, and not the person who's playing. You know, translate the number one quarterback at Alabama, put somebody else's name in it, you know, the next year in that uniform, it's still going to have the same value. Yeah. And so I think what I would do you know, if we went in that direction, I wouldn't try to manage the compliance things, but I would say, let's now monetize how much of that is you and how much of it is that you're wearing Alabama on your back. And we get that portion. The other thing I would do is say, yeah, make your choice. You want to go this way, we're going to take the scholarship money and give it to somebody else.
The last thing I wanted to touch on is people talk a lot about the football and basketball players, but realistically, the people that can really profit the most are going to be these Olympians. People that are swimmers and gymnastics players and track athletes, as Simone Biles and Missy Franklin, that have to choose between going to college and doing the Olympics. And now, Olympians, there might be the most monetary values on these Olympic athletes.
That's true, and they do have the choice to just go, you know, that way, amateur, and stay out of college completely. You know, the value of a college education, you know, if it, even at a public school, when you count tuition and room and board, athletes get all kinds of other things paid for. Again, look at the development league in basketball. And journalists in some ways, I apologize to you, amuse me, but because before the development league money went up, everybody was saying these kids are being, you know, they don't have enough to eat. You know, everybody's making money off them. They need to make money. They're worth so much. And then the development league came in with that proposal, and then you see everybody saying, well, but look what they get in college. They get world-class coaches. When they travel first class. They're not on some rickety bus. They play in arenas where people come and watch. Who goes and watches? People in the development league, I mean, all that stuff. It's true that some Olympic athletes would benefit, but most athletes, though, you know, I was on the NCAA men's gymnastics committee. There are very few collegiate athletes that are Olympic caliber athletes. There are some, there's no question, but it's also true that most players on a tennis team or on a golf team or on a soccer team, you name it, are not going to make their national teams and play in national competition. That's not to say they're not very good. It's just to say that the Olympic competition is at such a much higher level. So sure, they might be able to make some money off endorsements. Again, it's not clear. You use Simone Biles. I mean, but her prominence, she did national competition. She became prominent there. If she were playing college exclusively, I don't know how many people would have noticed or when they would have noticed. So yeah, you're right, some would make some. Vast majority would not benefit at all. I saw a survey done, you know, I'm not a fan of surveys because it depends on how you ask the questions and all that, where athletes were asked whether they supported name, image, likeness opportunities. I think most of them said yes, but what even a larger number said was they thought it would cause divisiveness on a team. And that's another issue that on the NCAA side they worry about.
Awesome. Anything else you want to add?
No, I think not. Unless you want me to tell you a story about law. I guess I will add one thing if I could.
Yeah, go for it.
The current statutes I think are unconstitutional because you cannot have one state dictating to a national association how it has to do its rules when it's got members from 49 other states. Effectively, that means you have an extraterritorial effect. Effectively, if the NCAA, let's say, has to match what Nebraska says, that means that institutions in New York and Florida and Georgia are obliged to follow what Nebraska law is. And that likely is unconstitutional.
So what do you think will happen?
If we're going to go in this area at all, it has to be national legislation. You cannot do it at a state level. Impossible. I mean, in fact, I've looked at some of the statutes. They are, in some respects, they contradict each other. So you couldn't possibly, as a national association, meet them all. That's minor. Yeah. But the other part of it is Georgia and New Jersey have a legitimate gripe if they don't want to go that way and they're being pushed by legislation, by a rule that's adopted because one particular state wants it. So I think it has to be a national legislation.
Great. Thank you so much.
Sure.